Today we're making Ricotta Gnudi with a Kale Basil Pesto. You heard that correctly, I said gnudi, not gnocchi.
They're similar yet different, kind of like siblings.
Hi, I'm Silu Sao and welcome to the Weekly Plant.
The first thing we're going to do to make our gnudi is to measure out 16 ounces of either whole milk or goat milk ricotta in a strainer over a bowl, and we're going to refrigerate it for about an hour. If your ricotta is much more watery, I would let it strain for a little bit longer. Next, we're going to use a box grater and the small holes to grate Parmesan cheese for both the gnudi and also for the Kale Basil Pesto. Don't throw away the Parmesan rind when you're done, because you can use it for different sauces and stews just to enrich the flavor. As you can see, we've been straining our ricotta and just a tiny bit of water has drained out. And we're going to dump our ricotta in a clean bowl to get ready to make our gnudi. I love this recipe because you can really just dump the ingredients in. And the first ingredient we're going to dump in is an egg. And then we're going to dump in 1 cup of grated Parmesan cheese.
Gnudi is a great pasta alternative for people who are gluten-free because this recipe we've made with a gluten-free flour and also with almond flour. So if you're missing pasta and you've gotten gluten-free or are gluten-free, this is a delicious and easy alternative.
We're going to put in a 1/4 cup of almond flour and then another 1/4 cup of gluten-free flour, and we've used in this recipe cup for cup. Finally, we're going to just mix everything together with a mixer and just watch the dough come together. It's going to be a little bit sticky. This is a great time to stop and check the dough. It should be a little bit sticky, but not too wet. And you can add a little bit more almond flour or gluten-free flour at this point. You'll want to just scrape down the sides of the bowl and then form it into a ball, cover it, and then refrigerate it while we make our Kale Basil Pesto. For the pesto, we're going to take 1/3 of a cup of pine nuts, 1 clove garlic, and place it in a mini food processor, and just give it a quick whiz so you're not left with big chunks of either pine nuts or garlic in your pesto. I'm going to open the mini food processor and put in 1 cup of loosely packed basil leaves, then I'm going to slowly pulse the mini food processor. Then add in 1 cup of loosely packed kale and do the same thing again. Add 2 pinches of salt to the mixture. Then add 1/3 of a cup of grated Parmesan and 1/3 of a cup of extra virgin olive oil. Then blend through until it's nice and smooth, and keep pulsing until you get the consistency that you want. This is a great time to take a little taste and see if you need to adjust the seasonings, and then pulse it again if need be. We're going to take our ricotta out of the refrigerator, and we're going to also set up a parchment-lined baking sheet. So as we roll out our ricotta, we're going to want to spoon them onto the parchment. Take 1 heaping tablespoon and then take another tablespoon and just roll the dough back and forth until it shapes into a football, and then roll it off gently and place it on the parchment. The gnudi doesn't have to be perfect, but if you want to shape them a little bit better, take a little bit of water and dab any of the wayward pieces of the gnudi into place. Gnudi freezes beautifully, so if you are not having this dish right away or just going to have a few pieces, you can actually freeze the gnudi as is and then take it out of the freezer when they're completely frozen and pop them into a Ziploc bag to use them later. When you're going to cook them later, you're going to want to add 1 to 2 minutes of extra cooking time to make sure that they're thoroughly cooked through, but they freeze beautifully. We have a pot of boiling water, and we're going to add enough salt to it to make it taste like the ocean. We're going to go ahead and gently place a few pieces of the Ricotta Gnudi into the pot of boiling water, and then we're going to cook them for about 3 to 4 minutes. The timing will completely depend on the size of the gnudi that you've rolled out, and there's a fine line between done and disintegration, so you want to watch a little bit carefully. Once the gnudi is floating, then you're about 1 to 2 minutes away from it being done. And you can see I didn't overcrowd the pot either, so I can gently give it a stir so they don't stick together. Then using a spider, I'm gently going to lift out the gnudi and let them drain a little bit. To plate this dish, I'm going to take a couple tablespoons of the Kale Basil Pesto and place it into a dish, which then I'm going to add a little bit of the cooking pasta to it to thin out the pesto just a little bit to make it a little bit more saucy. I'm going to gently take the strained gnudi and place it into the pesto bowl. And then I'm going to let it sit for a couple minutes because the gnudi is going to firm up as it sits a little bit. Using 2 spoons, I'm going to gently turn each piece so it's coated with the Kale Basil Pesto. And then for the grand finale, of course, I feel like we need to top the Ricotta Gnudi with just a little bit more Parmesan cheese to finish it off.
If you enjoyed today's recipe, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe button below, and we'll see you next week.